Steelers president Art Rooney II shared his frustration about the early playoff exit in recent years. Rooney said, quote, "We've had enough of this. It's time to get some wins. It's time to take these next steps. I think all of us that have been around for a little while are anxious to take this next step and getting a little impatient. We need to see the kind of improvement we all want to see." Mike believes that as firmly as anybody else in the building. So, Marcus, what's been the issue in Pittsburgh?
So, Mr. Rooney, are you feeling quarterbacky? Because that's what you need in order to take these steps forward. And look, cast no aspersions. Mason Rudolph played solid for them down the stretch. Kenny Pickett is young, and maybe you don't want to give up on him. I don't think you have a quarterback on the roster that's going to get you to where you're talking about going, Rooney. So if you don't address that, I feel like you'll be impatient again next offseason.
Yeah, unfortunately for them. All right, speaking of that Steelers offense, they made a hire at offensive coordinator today, bringing in former Falcons head coach Arthur Smith to run the offense. Smith, of course, finished 7-10 in each of his 3 seasons in Atlanta. Now, before he was hired by the Falcons, Smith had a pretty strong run as the offensive coordinator in Tennessee. In his last season in 2020, the Titans ranked in the top 4 in efficiency, points per game, and yards per play. Derrick Henry rushed for 2,027 yards in 2020, the 5th most in a single season in NFL history. So, Graz, what do we need to know about why the Steelers landed on Arthur Smith as their guy?
They wanted somebody who'd done it before, an experienced offensive coordinator who had had success in the league at the position. That was one of their goals as they went into this process, and Arthur Smith certainly fits that bill. He was able to have success in Tennessee. You mentioned Derrick Henry. His quarterback when he was in Tennessee as offensive coordinator was Ryan Tannehill, who's going to be a free agent, by the way. Maybe file that away, Steeler fans. Just saying that's a thing. Anyway, yeah, Arthur Smith, a guy who's experienced, had success, been able to operate a couple different ways as an offensive coordinator, and they just feel like he'll bring a fresh perspective to what they're trying to do on the offensive side of the ball.
Well, I'll tell you what, if I had George Pickens on my fantasy team, I'd trade him. Darnell Washington stock going up. No, I'm just kidding. Arthur Smith this year did get a lot of criticism for how he used or didn't use his skill players, but Dan makes a lot of really good points about his track record of offense. And the year before in Atlanta, you know, it wasn't just about Derrick Henry. They had an excellent run game last year. This year, things went off the rails. I think what I like about this hire, Marcus, is it actually dovetails with something that Pittsburgh was already doing pretty well. Last year, second half of the season, they really found an identity as a run-first offense that was very effective with multiple tight ends on the field. When they were in 12 or 13 personnel with 2 or 3 tight ends, they were a top 10 offense, 5th in yards per play. We have seen Arthur Smith have great success with tight ends in both Tennessee and Atlanta, and I really like the tight ends on Pittsburgh's roster. Ultimately, this is going to come down to the quarterback and whether he can build an offense around the skills of whoever that quarterback is. But I do think he has done things well in his career and in the last 2 stops that will translate to Pittsburgh.
MK, I love the point because there is a clear, concise way that he wants to play football, right? And you think about what you just mentioned at the end of the season, and it lines up with Warren and also Najee Harris in the backfield. A physical type run game, multiple tight ends on the field. But more importantly, this has been kind of an offensive coordinator carousel with asking the questions, are these guys really good enough to get us to where we need to be? When you start talking about Matt Canada being there and then you make a move during the season, Mike Tomlin, I'm sure, has been very frustrated with the impact that unit has had on the football team. So at least philosophically, you have a guy coming in where you know where he stands. Now, to the point, will he get a quarterback that can take him above where we've seen him go before? I think the run game is intact. I think the physicality of the offensive line and these tight ends are intact. Now it's about that other element as far as pushing the ball down the field and becoming explosive like we asked for too out of George Pickens and Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, Mina, does it really feel like in the offseason it's all just about getting a quarterback? And I am pretty interested in what Graz brought up about Tannehill being a free agent.
Yeah, that actually, my ears perked up because I hadn't made that connection yet. It does matter, Laura, and I think what I would actually be encouraged as a Steelers fan that they stuck with Rudolph, even though obviously didn't translate into playoff success. It signaled to me that this franchise recognized that just because Kenny Pickett was a first-round draft pick doesn't mean he is guaranteed that spot as starter, and hopefully that willingness to consider a competition at the position continues into this offseason.